Hey guys, Marco the Dog Trainer here. Today, we're going to be doing a really quick overview of the range of Dogtra collars that I typically use when I'm working with dogs. This video should kind of help you narrow down the selection of what models you'll probably want to start checking out for your particular dog. So let's say on that end of the scale, we're going to have smaller collars that have lower levels of stimulation because they're made for smaller dogs. We're going to have a shorter range that the remote and collar connect, and we're probably going to be a little lower in cost. Now, as we work our way this way, we're going to have bigger collars with higher levels of stimulation, again, because they're made for bigger dogs. We're going to have a further range that the remote and collar connect from, and we're probably going to be a little higher in cost as we work this way. Now, I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. I don't want you to think that just because you have a big dog, you absolutely have to get the big dog collar. And just because you have a small dog, you have to get the small dog collar. There is a little bit of flexibility here where there's times I've used big collars for small dogs and small collars for big dogs. So that kind of stuff is a little bit more dependent on what your dog's temperament is like or how sensitive they are. And some of the pros and cons and different features that these models offer kind of help me lean one way or another. So I would definitely check out the more detailed overviews of the different models that I have on my channel before you make any kind of final decision. But again, today is kind of a general video just to point you in the right direction. So let's generally say the IQ Plus and the IQ Mini. These are like our small dog collars. The 280 and the ARC, these are going to be kind of our medium to large collars. And the 1900S is going to generally be our big dog collar. Now, let's kind of talk about some similarities and differences across the board, just so you can kind of get a sense of it. So let's start by saying these four models, okay, the IQ Plus, the 280, the ARC, and the 1900S, they're all going to come with pretty typical standard contact points, meaning the points that are supposed to make contact with our dog's skin. So they can be replaced and swapped out with longer or shorter ones, depending on what your dog's fur is like. Where the IQ Mini, that's the only one that I have here that comes with plastic contact points that are kind of already built in. So it doesn't have the same flexibility to adjust them. Now, the next thing we'll talk about is that the 1900S, the ARC, and the 280, they all come with this kind of backlit screen on the remote. Okay, now that can be really nice for like nighttime walks, because you can see exactly what number your collar's set at, and you can really precisely adjust the level of stimulation. Where the IQ Plus and the IQ Mini, they do come with a dial to adjust the level of stimulation, but it's not as precise and there's not any kind of light. So at night, it might be a little bit more difficult to get a sense of what level it's on. Now, as far as waterproofing goes, the 1900S, the ARC, and the 280, these three are pretty much as waterproof as these collars can possibly be. Where the IQ Plus and the IQ Mini, they are waterproof to some extent, but just not quite as much as these three are. Okay, now, the next thing we'll talk about is that, okay, every single one of these models comes with a lanyard on the remote, okay? But these three, the 280, the ARC, and the 1900S, they also come with like an optional belt clip that you can screw onto the back of the remote to put it on your pocket. That's how I prefer it. Where these two do not come with that option, and you couldn't buy a separate belt clip to add on even if you wanted to. Now, another thing that is probably worth talking about is how each of these models work as a two-dog system. Okay, so let's say the ARC, the IQ Plus, and the IQ Mini, they all automatically come with a remote that can very easily be used for a two-dog system, meaning it already has buttons to connect a second collar. So if you already owned one of these three models and you ended up getting a second dog with similar needs, you could just buy a separate collar and sync it up to the remote to make them two dog systems. Okay, where the 280C and the 1900S, they're not quite as easily upgraded. So you could send them into Dogtra and pay them to add some buttons in, so that way you could buy a separate collar to add on to these two. Or right out of the gate, if you knew that you had two dogs, you could buy what they call the 282, which is a box that comes with 2 collars and a remote, or you could buy what they call the 1902, which again is 2 collars and 1 remote. Okay, so again, just a little bit harder to upgrade, or you would have to make that choice, when you're initially making the purchase. So before you make any kind of final decision, like I said, I would probably just try to figure out what range your dog falls into. Are we generally looking at small collars? Are we looking at medium to large collars? Or are we looking at big collars? And then I would probably go to my channel, check out the more detailed overviews that I have of each make and model to make sure that you're really narrowing down the right one for your particular situation. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.